The Sourced Podcast. You know, the intro to a podcast is truly how you set the tone. How do you do that? The Sourced Podcast. We'll go with that. This is the Sourced Podcast brought to you by Jiffy Ice Drills. I'm your host, Nate Zielinski. You know, I've caught everything, killed everything. Now it's time to talk about it. This is the truth, the stories, the true perspective, and most importantly, it's what the life is as a professional hunter and angler. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Source Podcast brought to you by Jiffy Ice Drills. I'm your host, Nate Zielinski. Super excited about today's podcast, guys. I have got guest Bobby Schmac in studio, a.k.a. Robert. Bobby, how you doing today?
Doing great.
So on these podcasts, we talk about like the intro, right? How I'm going to introduce this person. Man, it's a long list for you, right? Like we have like celebrities, right? We had an MTV superstar on here, but I look back and you're like the OG of so many things, right? Like, I mean, to this day, I would say that you and I can talk and you are the most cutting edge on so many things. You have a new advanced way to do something or new weapons, new fishing gear, right? A new technique. You're cutting edge. But on the other hand, you're shooting a bow made out of a stick that you practically whittled in your garage. So you're old school there.
Old school there.
You shoot a smoke pole, you know, a traditional musket, whatever, like you shooting a round ball. But he shoots it better than I shoot most of my very high-end firearms with optics.
You're being nice.
So very fine line of like the old school mix. Now, right, I'm wearing like the latest Instinct line by Bass Pro Cabela's. I got the best hunting gear, and I look with Bobby and we go out hunting, and like, do you believe in using anything other than cotton?
No.
So right, you're getting the gist right now, right? This is a super cool opportunity because you find the line of the latest and greatest, the cutting edge, and you mix it with traditional stuff. And I love it because you're crazy successful. Everything just about what you do works. So that's like the starting point of the conversation. That's who we're talking to today in regards to this.
Nice.
So I love that. So Bobby and I met several years ago. So when we talk about like meeting time, so this was when I was very full-time on the fishing. I had just slowed down from guiding elk hunts, and I was hitting the water like 320 to 340 days a year. So through 2006 to 2011, I spent far more time on water than I did land. So you actually calculated the time. I was on water or ice more than I was on land for several years. And with that, I was moving lakes. So I was on a double guide trip. So I had a morning trip, I had an afternoon trip, and I was moving lakes, and this car started following me, right? And like this guy is on my tail. And I'm like, man, that guy's flying. And you know, so like you do a turn and the guy's still following you and you're like, that's weird. Then I do another turn and I'm like, this guy's following me. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I probably cut him off. Like they're mad, right? They're like looking at me. I park my truck at the boat dock and these two guys bail out. We got Bobby here, do-rag on, and we got this other guy who's like, ripped, big, massive dude. They're both rocking the mustaches, and I'm like, I'm dead. Like, they're going to beat me up in the boat dock parking lot in front of my clients. And they come running out, and they're like, hey, you're the pike guy. And it turns out they're hardcore fishermen. They just wanted to say hi, but you scared me to death that day.
That was awesome.
So fast forward like 15, 20 years, and here we are. We look back, and we've had so much stuff. So the topic of today, without further ado, it is all about a very serious topic of the world today. We are talking about hate crimes. We're talking about racism. We're talking about all the things that are a hot topic. And with that, the main focus point, rough fish. Hate crimes on rough fish. Where do you stand? As you start listening to this podcast, I want to know right now, right, when it comes to carp, suckers, and the list of other fish, are you anti-rough fish? Do you view a rough fish as a sport fish? Or where you at, right? Where's that line? This is one of those things that I will say that I was a hardcore bow fisherman. I launched a bow with diamond archery for bow fishing, and I was extreme on the bow side, right? And then we started hanging out, and you're like, hey man, we love catching carp. And I'm like, and you were like, no, and like you were giving me quite a hard time. And one day you were like, hey, they are so smart. And I'm like, they're a carp. They're so dumb. And we're going back and forth, and you bet me. And I'll never forget it. You said, hey, most things in the state, I can go out and I can catch 5 of. And that's the number. We always say 5. They said everybody gets lucky and they catch a carp by accident, right? Because they react to vibration or this or that. But they said, go out and you catch me 5 carp, and we'll have a different conversation. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe outside of a tiger muskie, I can go catch 5 of anything that swims in the state on the average day kind of thing. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I could go catch that many carp. And then all of a sudden you do it and you're like, whoa, right? Like, they're not that easy. So I started to consider it. And then I did like everybody does, right? As I started to fish for some carp, all of a sudden I was like, take a hook, put 5 worms on it, cast it out, put some dough on a hook. And I caught a couple, and I was like, I caught some. But then all of a sudden I get to colder water times of the year, breaking seasons, and I wasn't catching them. And I was like, man, there must be more to it. And then I start learning more and more, and I'm like, if the average angler had the skill and knowledge of the average carp angler, so angler to angler, right? Average bass guy, average walleye guy to the average carp guy, I hate to say it, the carp guy's on the next level. There's so much more that goes into the carp thing than anything else. I know everybody's like looking at me like I'm crazy, but it is. So the conversation being today, we want to talk about all concepts of rough fish. I would love to change the opinion of some people of maybe we're not classifying it in the DNR book as a sport fish. I'm not even saying you have to, I don't want to even say you have to protect them, right?
Right.
Do whatever you want with them. But I think they deserve recognition for what they are, especially the carp. Now, we've done some changes to where I wouldn't say that I necessarily categorize suckers as much as the sport fish side, just because the athletic ability of the carp, the brain of the carp, more so the suspended factors of the carp, right? Suckers rarely come feed off the surface. A sucker doesn't feed in the water column, but we see carp chasing down schools of shad. We see them up feeding on bugs. So I see predatory instincts in a carp that I don't see in some other fish, and that's where, especially on the carp side, I think they deserve a little bit of a classification under that sport fish category. At least, just nothing else, under the street credit of being athletic. So I think there's so much to it, and that's what we kind of want to talk about. And the big concept, I'd say, most important that we talk about this with is 2 aspects. We have our ice addiction tournament series. On this podcast, you hear us constantly referencing ice addiction just because it's such a massive event, right? Anytime that you get, 800 to 1,000 anglers in a tournament, it's a big deal. We'll have 12, 15, 20 states in attendance. So all of a sudden, when you get this mass group of anglers, you get opinions, you get ideas, you get concepts. And recently, in the last couple of years, we had anglers where in an ice addiction tournament, we allowed all fish to be weighed, right? If it's a swimming gilled fish, it's a situation where you can weigh it in the tournament. And we had anglers just absolutely fired up that we were allowing rough fish to be weighed, that you could weigh a shad, a sucker, a carp, any of these fish. And everybody's like, hey, you can't do that. And we're like, hey, if it's caught, if it bites, it's, mouth feeding, we count it. And we really brought in some discussions of what that is, what it's not. And we actually had made some changes just due to that conversation we just had. So we had anglers who were like, hey, if it's not, working the water column, if it's not actively feeding, if it's not doing this, if it's just filter, it shouldn't count. So we said, okay, we'll meet in the middle. Carp count in our tournaments, suckers don't, right? So we got rid of the filtering aspect alone and just said, hey, if it has more movement in the water column and actually feeds, we can count it. And that's where we rested on things. But the concept of it is so important for people to know. So I want to talk to you specifically on all aspects of it, of the carp, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty about what I think makes carp so special. But what got you started on carp? You, hands down, just so you know this, if anybody looks to me as a carp angler, right, we own a tournament series called Don't Bash the Trash Carp Craze. I think a lot of people look at me and they're like, Nate, man, you're a great carp angler. I learned 1,000% from you. Like, there's nothing in my arsenal that I didn't learn from you. So you're talking to the guy who taught me. So what got you started at the carp game?
So I grew up in a lower income area, Western Pennsylvania, and we didn't have, nobody I knew even had a boat. If you did, it was a John boat that leaked.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had to fish from the shore. We're young, high school, and that's what we did. So trout season was put in take where I grew up. Okay. Summer got warm, no trout left. Bass fishing was great, but limited places to do it. Yeah. We could carp fish anywhere. Every stream, like the Susquehanna River, all those big river drainages.
Allegheny, all of them. Yep.
So that's what we did. So it was primitive. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we would catch a few. Yeah. And there were pay lakes.
Yep.
So at night, we would go to these pay lakes, and every 20 yards or so around the lake, there'd be a 3-sided shed and a light pole with a burn barrel. This is Western Pennsylvania all the way. And we would spend the whole night, and there was a weigh station on the lake.
Yeah.
And so there was many different tournaments going on at once. Like you could catch a tagged fish.
Yeah.
You could compete for the night. You could put money in different kitties for the longest, the heaviest. So whatever you wanted to do.
Okay.
So that was our high school drinking days.
Entertainment. Yeah,
Go to the lake. So when I moved here, I got away from it because I also fly fish and do all the hoity-toity stuff. So my son went to Kansas. He saw a big carp laying on the side of the bank. Somebody threw it up there.
Yeah.
And he comes home, and he's young. He's just, 12, 13. And he says, I want to catch carp, Dad. And I went, well, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
So let's go. So not only did we go catch carp, but then I took it to the next level.
Yeah.
I just divulged into the internet with all the European, the way they do it. And I learned.
It is next level.
Oh, my goodness. Well, and I got addicted to it.
Yep.
Well, what helped me is nobody fishes for them, really.
Yeah.
So I was able to deal with unpressured fish.
Yep.
So I got to be a little bit more successful than I would maybe if I did it in Europe.
Yeah.
Because those fish can be hard to catch.
Oh, absolutely.
So then I was just enjoying it by myself, keeping it secret, not telling anybody, the whole deal. Well, then me and you met, we started, and now I'm fine to share it with people.
Yeah.
It's all good, but there still doesn't seem to be a lot of people. More, but not a lot.
I mean, that's just it. And we see that, and we've had tons of discussions with that exact point with DNR agencies, right? I've talked to the Kansas DNR, Nebraska, obviously do a lot here in our home state with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and Utah. And a lot of the DNR agencies, they're, I don't want to say constrained, but they have a board of directors, and it's a massive conversation of what's happening with these agencies. But I keep pushing to recognize carp more as a sport fish, but not that again. I'm not trying to protect them, right? I mean, that's the thing. I think people are like, man, we have too many. I'm like, I'm not saying you can't kill every one of them.
Sure.
I'm just saying the recognition, because here's the deal. Youth angling across the country is shrinking, right?
Right.
And the more that you talk to a youth angler, right? There's high school programs, there's college. So the concept of it is growing, but the actual numbers, the physical numbers of kids that fish are going down, or at least with our population, as you look at the ratio. The odds of a youth angler, you drop a pin on the map, and the odds that a youth angler has a bass fishery, a trout fishery, walleye, whatever, if they have a good fishery near where they could ride their bikes or walk to, the odds of that is extremely low. But if you just say, hey, demographically, we drop a pin in the nearest water, what is there? Carp. So if you look across the country, the best opportunity for a young angler to have a decent opportunity at catching a fish is carp. So I keep pushing these agencies like, hey, right, kids don't know.
Right.
They don't know that a carp is, classified in our country as less value than a bass, right? So I just keep kind of push for this big turnaround because I just want them recognized as a sport fish simply for the fact that, like little kids catch carp all the time. They come show me, and they're like, look at this. And I'm like, they don't even know. And I'm like, that's awesome. But I see them show other people, and they're like, oh, that's a carp. And I'm like, I want to just take people out back. And I'm like, the 6-year-old's excited.
Yeah.
Go back and tell him you're proud of him,
Yes.
But that's just like the concept there, and I think that's huge. And so many anglers in the United States, we've been just born and bred that carp are bad. But everywhere else in the country, like Europe, it's a hierarchy, right?
It is.
You go to Europe and you're like, I'm a walleye fisherman, and they look at me like the community looks at a carp angler.
Exactly.
Right? I'm like,
that.
I'm a pro walleye, and they're like. What, that fish doesn't
It's
even know
that
how to
ridiculous,
fight. It's crazy. So everywhere else in the world, they are a hierarchy.
Yep.
All the brands that you know today have products for carp in Europe, right? It just hasn't quite made its way here. Now, Oklahoma, it's doing fairly good. The East Coast is doing Texas. There's tournament trails. There's companies. But, in retrospect to the big bass trout that it hasn't made its way. And it's hard to say if it ever will. We had a big push 5-6 years ago, right? St. Croix rods had a carp rod. Eagle Claw was making American-made, carp hooks. So we had a little movement. Some have faded, some have stayed. It's hard to say where it will end.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think more than anything, just getting your mind wrapped around the concept that they're a cool fish. Support it for other anglers who just want to catch some fish. And then I think ending that conversation with ask yourself why. Why do we not like them, right? You can't say because they're dumb and easy to catch, right? Because everybody gets them on accident or you snag one. If you go catch one, you'll agree real quick they're not easy to catch. So that's one thing. Everybody will say, oh, well, they don't taste good. I'm like, did you eat one? I know a lot of guys that eat them and like them. A carp was brought to the United States as a food source.
As a food fish.
I mean, literally, the fish was brought to America as a food source, right? So people do eat them, and I think it's like anything, right? Like, I can tell you right now, I do not eat trout. I would eat a carp every day over a rainbow. Right? Like, you're like, hey, Nate, you got to go to the lake and get dinner. Like, I'm going to go for a perch and a crappie first and a walleye. But, like, if I can't do it, I guarantee I'm eating a carp over trout. But nonetheless, when you look at concepts of catch and release in today's market, right? So, like, where we sit right now today, vast majority of anglers, all across the country are catch and release. For whatever reason, right? I mean, you look at like my guide service, right? We're 99.8% catch and release, right? Those poor walleye take the brunt of the keeping fish that we do. But generally speaking, we're catch and release, right? So when you look at the catch and release ratio, vast majority is catch and release. So you can take the concept of needing a fish for a food source and throw it out. So that's not the aspect. Then you'll get a lot of anglers that'll be like, well, I want a fish that fights hard. I'm like, give me a break, right? I don't care how wicked your smallmouth is, your largemouth, our big 40-inch pike or big Lakers. Nothing holds a candle to the carp.
The Laker would be the closest.
I mean, that would be the closest. But a Laker is 40 inches, 40 pounds. You throw that same classification into a carp.
Then it's a whole nother
thing. It's a whole new ball. That's it. Everybody's like, man, my big Laker fights more than that. And they're comparing a 10-pound carp to a 40-pound. I'm like,
That's true.
I would hope. You know what I mean?
True.
So either way, they fight as hard. So the sport fish challenge is there. The fight is there. I mean, everything about it. We catch and release anyway. So I just don't see the big reason. Now, some of the techniques that we use with the Euro style, especially on the Euro style, right? I mean, beeper pod holders that have alarms going off and pack bait. I mean, all this stuff. I do agree that brings on a little bit of a rednecky...
sophisticated redneck.
Yes. So that could definitely bring down our angling community.
It does.
In the style points, but right? Like, who really cares about that? So, but those are the concepts. Now, I want to ask you, right? You are on the side of pro carp. Now, when you talk to friends about this, I want to talk about a fish that everybody loves, right? Let's just say we go down to Louisiana, to Texas, to Florida. When we go catch a big bull redfish, I think everybody in the country is like, ooh, that's awesome.
And they've gotten more popular.
Way more popular. Tournaments for them, recognition by all brands across the country, guide services, everything. And what is a redfish versus a carp? Like,
pretty close to the
close, right? Now, I'm like the biggest sturgeon fan in the world. I make an annual trip every year to Idaho, right? And you talk to people about sturgeon, and I mean, like, there is nobody that's like, oh, sturgeon? Like, they love them. Same as the redfish. You love them. But, like, at the end of the day, filter feeder, bottom, same type thing. Carp is the only one of most of these trash that comes way up in the water column. You know what I mean? Reds will chase some stuff down, but so will carp. So either way, when you look at premium fish, technically, around the country, they're very similar to a carp. There's a lot of fish that have the same concepts.
Well, carp will take a dry fly.
Take a dry fly. They eat shad in the middle of the water column. They chase down crawdads. More than that. Now, how often do we catch carp on, like, the wrong thing? And that's the one thing I want to talk about. So, a trout, a rainbow, right? When I fish them, I could go to our average trout fishery. I could throw 50 different baits, 50 different things. I could catch them on every single one. They smoke it. They digest it. You see them spitting it out, choking on it, everything else, right? They grab it and they eat it. They're just like this big, hungry machine. Now, carp, you watch them come up and feed, and they're like, they like taste it, right? They like lick it, and they're like, ooh, that doesn't have enough protein for me. A carp is like a bodybuilder. And you're laughing at me right now because you're like, I catch them on whatever. The biggest failure of a carp, honestly, is simply for the fact that in extremely warm water, they're looking for sugars and carbs.
Yeah.
So they take a lot of stuff that tricks them because they're looking for that classification of food. And the other big flaw they have is vibration. A big carp has such vast concepts of taking in movement and feel. So we all know of a lateral line, right? Every fisherman's like, oh, fish has a lateral line. That's how they sense things. Carp is literally from their front of their mouth to the back of their tail, lateral line included. So their whole body is built to feel things. So they can feel invertebrates 6 inches under the mud. They can feel a bug land on the surface. A carp has a better sensory system throughout their entire system. But you throw something that rattles and vibrates near them, right? A rattle trap, a blade bait. Those vibrations hit them, and it's like a buffet in front of them. A lot of times we catch them on these things. Everybody's like, they're dumb, but they have a few flaws like other things. But they taste their food. They know their food better. Like when we carp fish, when the water's cold, we're literally adding whey protein to our bait, right? A lake trout's 60 years old. I'm not adding protein to my tube jig, right? They don't know, but a carp does. Yeah. Like when it comes to like a sophisticated fish, like they know everything. So with that, Bobby, as my mentor in the carp world, we have the way that I started, right? So you taught me some of the rigs, and I was taking a spinning reel. I was casting out this big hunk of stuff, and I would like loosen my drag, and I would hear the drag go, and I would go tighten it up, and then I moved to like line counter reel, so I had a clicker. And then we moved on to now I have full-blown electronic beeper pods and all the stuff. But I want you to walk people just on a general concept of carp angling from the beginning stages of making a dough ball to a worm on the bottom up to some of the more modern techniques that we're using now.
So the dough bait has been popular for a long time. Make it with Kool-Aid. And that was the way we used to do it. And that was our flavor. Grape Kool-Aid, strawberry Kool-Aid. You can still do it. And you can put the dough on the hook, but the problem is they like to suck and spit.
And mouth it.
And it comes apart as they're doing that.
Yep.
And then you'll see the rod moving, the line moving, but the hookups are iffy because they're spitting.
They're so sensitive.
They're just sensitive. A night crawler sometimes does a little better because they'll actually eat that.
Yep.
They don't. I mean, they'll still. The underwater footage, they'll even suck and blow on a night crawler.
Oh, yeah.
Hence where the hair rig came in with that hook behind the bait so that when they did that movement of intake, outtake, the hook would catch.
Yep.
So I went to it immediately. Yeah. Now, in the old days when we used to do the dough bait, we would just stay tight on our rods. And when you'd see it going, you just would do a swing into him.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
One of those deals. There wasn't a lot of sophistication and there wasn't really any consistency. Yep. But it was infantile what we were doing.
Oh, that's just it. Yeah. And you got a few fish. So what you're talking about, just to like throw people out there. So when you take a hook and you put bait on it, right? You put a piece of bread and you form it around it. You take a night crawler, whatever, and you cast it out. Your hook is attached to your bait. It's all one wad. A carp literally sucks it in. So they swim over it. They're very cautious. Like they're feeling with their fins. Like if they feel your line, they'll get weird. So they come in and they literally suck it in and blow it back out about that fast. Like, and they blow it out. And their body is literally through their mouth, through their sensories, up to their brain. And they're like, is this a good thing for me to eat? Like, is there enough protein? Is it sweet enough? Whatever. They're literally processing like, that's a Twinkie.
Right.
I'm going to the beach next week. I shouldn't eat that. Like, I hate to say it. They're processing to say if they want to eat it.
That's what they
do.
And
I can't tell you how many times we're like, you watch your odds like, doo-doo, and you're like, where'd it go? And they never come back.
Gone.
Right? Because they were like, that's the wrong deal. But when it's right, after they test it, they're like, yes, that's good for me. I want that. Then they suck it in again. But through that process of like sucking and blowing and spitting it out, the rig that we have gone to is called a hair rig. So your weight is down here, and you have a small tag in the line, right? It can be 3-4 inches to 18 inches, whatever. You're going to have a lead, and you'll change that due to bottom content, weeds, mud, and all this stuff. But your hook comes on first. So pretend that you're snelling your hook on. So your hook is here, and then you have a small piece of line, inch and a half, behind your hook. We actually attach your bait, right? So you could put on a piece of a boilie, which is like a floating harder piece of dough. You could put on pop-up corn or the list can go on, and we'll talk about that more, but your bait is behind it. So your hook is wide open, nothing near it. Your bait's behind it. The concept, when they suck it in, they suck in everything. When they blow it, the hook rolls and just drags across their top lip. Now, a carp, being smart, again, I know I'm like fighting this battle, but being smart, that hook drags across their top lip of that hair rig, and it just barely touches them. They feel that by what they do. So a carp knows when they have danger, right? They know when they're scared. So when a carp touches it and that hook barely touches them, these hooks are so razor sharp, it touches them and they panic. So then they take their fins and they literally push down and they lift themselves up. Like they know in a dangerous situation, lift up and swim away. When they lift up, that line tightens on that weight and it penetrates. All of a sudden, barb is now past it, and then it's on, and they freak out, and they go 1,000 miles an hour. But that's the concept there. So they literally are mouthing, and with the correct hair rig, it kind of sticks them. They lift up, and, I mean, it's game on. It's screaming, and it's fun. And that's, like, the concept of how they feed. But you mentioned Kool-Aid, right?
Yep.
And the more that we have dug into the concepts of carp, it used to be like stinky scent, almost like the catfish kind of thing. Like, we need scent. And then all of a sudden you started to understand, like, hey, they want something good for their body and they need certain things certain times of the year. And all of a sudden it's like a bear going into hibernation and their diets change throughout the year. So, like, right now, Colorado, I don't want to say that I can speak across the country, but we got a lot of carp trips here in Colorado. We do a lot of carp fishing. And we have found now that, like, in your cold water season, so just call it 55 degrees and colder, it's about protein, right? If we don't have protein on the hook, we're not catching them. So this could be a hook with like 10 maggots on it. It could be a dough ball, but you're mixing whey protein in it. The list goes on, but we are running high protein food source. I can't tell you how many times I've been to like GNC. And the guy, the big dude's like, what do you need? And I'm like, hey, man, I need carp bait. Like, I need high protein, but I want it to be strawberry flavored, right? And, like, they're laughing at you. But, like, it's the case. So cold water, 55 and colder, we're running a protein-based diet, right? Our bait has protein in it. So when they touch it and they finally get it and it's in the air and it smells it, they're like, high protein, their body knows it that fast. Not like us. Like, we're so weak as a race. We're like, we're like, we don't know. So they want that protein. Then in the shoulder season, what we call it. So in between the cold water and the warm water, right? Our cold water is like October to early May. It's a very long season. Then our shoulder season is when that water is like 55 to 65. It's like a month on either side. This is probably the craziest time. We do well with spices. Right? So it's like Tabasco, chili pepper. It's crazy, and they really like the spice. I always say they're like going through a funky phase of like a trimester of a pregnancy, right? Like they have these cravings.
It's really weird.
It's weird. I mean, like everything we have is like, straight up hot sauce spice. And then the time when I tend to do best is post all the spawn seasons is in our summer month or our warm water. That's going to be like 70 degrees and higher. So the shoulder is at 55 to like 65, 70, above 70. So that's going to be our June, July, August. And those 3 months is when they want sugar. They want sweet. So they fall for the carb. They fall for all the sweets. So that's where the Kool-Aid type thing works. I mean, we're running, I think probably the hottest scent in the last 3 years would be pineapple. Would you agree? For me, at least, my pineapple everything, if I go carp fishing and I run pineapple, I'm catching them. Like bananas, coconut, all your fruity flavors tend to do really, really well. Almond, sweeter flavor. That's it. Good. So all the sweets turn on. And now we do this and we catch a lot of fish, and everybody's like, they don't know. So I've had bets with people, like my own clients. I'm guiding, and like I'll have all my bait there, like all my pack baits, my dough baits. We do a lot of corn type stuff because in the sweeter months they love corn. And they, we'll soak it in protein powders or we'll soak it in scent, and I'll have my spicy corn and my regular corn, right? So I'll have all my fruity ones, and we're whacking fish. And I'm explaining this process to clients, and they're like, they don't know. I'm like, all right, perfect. I'm like, your rod, you'll have 2 buddies. And I'm like, you're talking trash. So you put the spice on, put the protein on, and their rod just goes dead. And everybody else is whacking them, and they're kind of looking at you. I'm like,
isn't it crazy?
Do you want to say sorry, and we can move on with our day, and I'll put back on a sweet one? But they know.
Right.
I mean, like instantly, even in a feeding frenzy, they know. I mean, so it's just crazy how complex their feeding system is.
And it's the fun part of it. That's what makes it fun.
That's it. Dialing it in.
Because you get the bait and you go, man, what's he what sense he got on.
Yep. And so with that, I think the other part of this that I just love is the community aspect of figuring out baits, right?
Yeah.
I know what I use as my dough baits, my pack baits, all this kind of stuff, and I'm a little secretive, right?
Sure.
Because when we talk about carp, we are dealing with a smart fish.
Yep.
And you talked about how when you started, you were dealing with unpressured fish,
Yes.
right? And they're easier to catch. They learned quicker than about any species that I know. After I hit the same spot 3-4 trips in a row, like the pineapple doesn't work or this doesn't work. Like they catch on quicker than you would think they
say
would.
they retain it longer, too.
Okay, so that's okay.
Yep.
I mean, either way, they catch on quick. So sometimes when guys are like, hey, what scent you use? And I'm like, man, I want to help them because I want to promote carp, but I also don't want to, like, have to go find a new scent, right? When I go to my local grocery store and I go to my flavored scents, in the spice aisle, like, there's only 10 of them.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, then you go to Amazon, you're like, what flavors, oils can I get? And you're like, you're going to run out. So I'm a little cautious of that. But like the hardcore carp guys have like their family recipe.
Oh, for sure.
It's so fun. It's like we have a division of our open water tournament series called Catch Rate, and we have a carp division. Like you walk around and talk to these guys, like they're covering it up with a towel, and like I'll walk up and I'm like, what does this smell? I'm like, smell that. What is it? Like I tell my kids, I'm like, what do you smell that? Trying to like hone in, and it's always like it's a little maple, it's a little vanilla, a little hint of strawberry on top.
Oh yeah, the basic scents are good, but there is a company, and I think it's called Carp Juice. Okay, and they started with the snow cone flavorings. Okay, because
I haven't gone. I'm missing out right now.
They have over 60 scents that you can buy in like 2-ounce containers, and it's online. It's somewhere back east, but anyway,
I never even thought of
worth
snow
going.
cone syrup.
Yep. So it's
Next
worth.
summer, there's a tournament angler that I can't tend to beat. I fish against him all the time, Jeremy Romero. I'm going to use Dragon's Blood. Yes. Next summer, Jeremy, if you listen to this, Dragon Blood snow cone is coming out. I'm going to wreck those fish.
No, it's neat, but that shows you how much effort they're putting toward it. 60 flavors, and that's a business of theirs. They're making a living selling snow cone flavorings.
That's crazy. Just for the carp. It's
pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And it's funny because, again, being the well-rounded, right? More so, not saying that because I feel like I'm a good angler. I started off trying to do it with straight tackle that I have in my shop before I invested into the bigger rods and all the gear and bait feeder reels and all the kind of stuff. And you can take a lot of modern, U.S. gear and adapt it to make it work. I'm running like pin saltwater reels, spin fishers with bait feeders, and that really helps me out. There's a lot of stuff. But I would say that the biggest concepts that I struggled with was when you get these bigger fish and you deal with the power they have is hooks, right? I took my normal hooks and I'm like, and they're great hooks, right? We catch these 40-pound Lakers and I'm like, this is a great hook. Then all of a sudden you get a carp and like we're bending stuff and braiding stuff. So I remember when I first went into Eagle Claw, a great partner of ours, and I was like, hey man, I need something stronger. And they're like, this is good. And I'm like, no, dude, I need way stronger. And we started like getting into it. And then like you start getting into the science of the hooks and where the bend comes on the hook. Yeah. And I'm like, why does that matter? I go, oh, that's going to be a strength point. We're going to get, an 18% flex on that hook, and then it hits here. That's where we're going to have our strength. And, now I'm running all Trocar carp hooks by Eagle Claw. But like at first, I couldn't believe the gear I went through.
Yes.
Like just getting
they
thrashed.
Hammer it.
I mean, just beating it up.
I would tell people too, you can adapt your stuff.
Yep.
But I would start with lake trout gear.
Yeah.
Because even if you took like an ugly stick with 20-pound test on it, you're going to struggle.
Oh, yeah.
And with a big carp.
They just don't give up.
No, and if a 20-pounder, well, you get into 25 and a 30-pounder.
I mean, that's it.
That's all.
Which there's a lot of them.
They are.
They grow fast, and when you really hone it in and start getting into those. And I agree. When you start flirting with that like 35 inches, that's where all of a sudden they start getting tough. And, I competed in some tournaments this year, and I was straight up on the struggle bus. I had went to Florida. doing a ton of saltwater last spring, and I brought my carp rod. So I was on the opposite side, right? Like, I had the carp gear first, and I was like, my carp gear's strong enough for salt. I'll bring it. Yeah. And the salt really ate up my line and beat up some of my gear. And I had no problem landing Jack Crevalle, amberjack, all these major
Fighters,
sport fish. And I was like, man, the gear did great from that. We're good for carp. And the carp were just breaking my line, breaking snaps. And I'm just like, what is going on?
Swivels is another one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they just, every aspect of the concept, they just beat up and break.
Yep.
I mean,
I can't explain that, but they do. Well, they drag it across the bottom into weeds and wood, and that's they always don't fish by wood. You'll catch them, but you won't get them.
I mean, they do, and they're just strong enough that you get near anything and they break it off, So then the next concept comes of more the education side of the carp. Everybody's like, all right, it's a carp. Just go throw your line and you're going to catch one. It's amazing, very much like a walleye, the time of day, when they're feeding on what things and what they're not, and like how we set up. So like there's times when I go out there and you'll see carp all over the surface, right? And they're feeding on bugs on the top, or like they know that when a cotton tree drops its seeds, there's protein in those seeds. So you'll see them up feeding on cotton seeds all the time to get the protein out of that. I mean, it's a nut like anything else. So a lot of times you see them up just mouthing. It's not on gnats and bugs. It's usually on cotton. Right. And again, same type thing. I know so many anglers like, look at that dumb fish eating cotton. And it's like, it's thriving on a protein base that everybody else is, But with that, like, I can't tell you how many anglers I've watched, especially even carp anglers, that will see active fish. And like, we got to go over there. And I'm like, well, those aren't the fish we're catching. Like, those are on a different food source. They're on to do something different. So, like, when we fish for carp, we sit on structure like any other species, like walleye, like smallmouth, like lake trout. When we target carp, we sit on a contour edge where it's like shallow water, taper off to deep. And midday, they're in the deep, digesting their meal just like another fish. And then when it's time to feed, lower light, sunlight changes, they slide up on the flat. So like we try to line ourselves up to where one bait is up on top, one's on the bottom. You'll catch them in deep, and then you'll catch them on the top, and you really kind of work that edge. But again, I mean, it comes down to being as scientific
for sure.
as any fish that I've ever caught. Now, as we talk about scientific and the basically the smarts of them, you have more knowledge of the true Euro style, but I want you to walk us through a traditional, like a pay lake in Europe or a fishery in Europe, where these guys will tag their fish and they'll keep track of them for 30 years. And I mean, these fish get caught once a decade kind of thing? Or like, walk us through that style of where all this came from.
So some of those lakes, they might only be 5-7 acres.
Okay.
So you'll belong. It's like a club. It'll pay, and then you'll go fish it. And there'll be fishermen on the lake every day of the year.
Every day.
So the carp are pressured heavy. And you can do, it's called pre-baiting.
Okay.
In Europe, they do this. You cannot do it in Colorado.
Yeah, in Colorado,
You can do it in Nebraska.
But
what they would do is they will bait the area that they're going to fish.
Try to get them hooked on something.
Yes, and get them going. And some of the hardcores might even bait them for weeks.
Okay.
And then they'll slide in with their baits.
Okay.
And down to where they'll leave their bait they're going to fish with in the lake water. They'll get a bucket of the actual lake water and let the bait get pale from being in the water, so when they throw it out, it doesn't look like a fresh bait again. So that it gets that scientific. But the one lake, now don't quote me on all this, but the fish's name was Two-Tone.
Okay.
You can Google him. He's on the internet.
Yeah.
I believe he was 25 or 30 years old.
Okay.
And they literally buried him with a gravestone. No lie. And he was only caught 7 times, I believe.
7 times.
In a lake that gets fished every single day.
Every day.
And gets baited in every technique they could throw at him.
Just can't.
So that's kind of how into them they are.
You throw a stalker rainbow in a lake for 30 years, he's going to get caught more than 7 times. I'm not being mean. Don't judge.
Now, what was cool, though, they did an underwater video, and I'm going back to when you were talking about as they take a bait. So they would show a carp bringing in a bait and spitting it out, and they would show the hook actually grabbing him on the edge of the lip.
Nicking,
And the fish is so smart, and he's been caught before. Instead of freaking like our uneducated fish do, he would swim forward and
and just manipulate
the hook out, and you could see the tension on the line when he felt it, and he came forward and got it out. So they build rigs that have like tensioners and spring action in them, so that they keep grabbing when he tries to get it back out. So it's kind of there. It's at that level that their senses are.
That's it. So you have to Google this. I mean, dead serious. Go to YouTube and just do underwater footage of carp feeding. And you're going to see American fish that suck it in and freak and take off. But you'll see Eurofish like you talk about. I mean, it's literally like the rude person at dinner that's got something in their teeth that they're like.
That's exactly what it is.
You watch them on camera, and they're literally sitting there, and they're like making these faces. And you're like, and they're just manipulating their jaw up and down, left and right, and their gills are just all forward moving. No, it's crazy how they can control that. Like their gills, they're just rolling forward, and they're like barely breathing in and rolling forward, just pushing everything they have to spit it. And most of the time, all the footage I see, they usually get it.
They usually
wiggle it up and spit that thing out.
That's why I sharpen my hooks every time I cast them.
I mean, it's important. I mean, it literally, when it nicks them, it has to hold.
To stick. Yep.
And like we're talking to where like a hook just runs across their skin. It has to just pin them, and then hopefully our U.S. fish come up and it pins them, and then they go.
And our fish freak out, so they usually catch themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying they all do, but I haven't really. Maybe one of the lakes I fish, I could say I educated them in there to where I almost can't even catch one anymore.
I've been with you on that fishing.
That's
I get
a
it.
hard one.
That was not for my gear, right? Like, I want the big test. I want straight super line leaders. And now, talking about their sensitivity, something cool that I think probably opened my eyes when I was learning from you, right? So we casted out our rig, hits the bottom, and then you held your rod up in the air and you clipped a weight, and you like poked your rod up in the air, and this weight slid down the line. And I'm like, why did you add a second sinker to your rig? And you're like, I'm just putting back tension and a back weight to keep my line on the bottom. And I'm like, what? And he's like, just my tension from my rod tip going out to my bait on a 60, 70-yard cast. If my line is elevated at all, the carp will literally touch it with their tail and not come back.
Out.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But as 10 years into it now, every single thing matters.
The little things,
And again, I think I'm more just highlighting it to just express like the concern for how educated they are.
I know, that's the hard part. People don't believe it.
I mean, that's it. Go catch 5.
Yeah, just go catch 5.
Every person, go catch 5.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So, Bobby, now as we get into more of the education side, hopefully we have people somewhat convinced. Not talking the true American, just put bait on, throw it out there. But if you're going to dabble into the carp world, give people the advice on how to get started. You taught me, and now we're running beeper pod holders. So like basically we have a rod holder. We do it from the banks. We sit on shore. We cast on our rigs. Our rods sit on a little beeper system that has a roller, right? So you have a roller guide. When our line goes through the roller, it beeps, lets us know. And like in Europe, they'll run them like on vibrate.
Yeah.
Like they'll have it on a pager because they don't want people to know they caught one.
Right.
But we're pretty, over the top about it. We like the bells and whistles and all that kind of stuff. So you can take it to the extreme. The nice thing is everything that we do is affordable.
It is.
Right? Whether you're going to the Bass Pro Cabela's and getting the gear or, online or whatever, you can take it to any level. It's very much like the boating market, right? You can do it on a very, very minimal budget. You could do it on the full extreme of everything. You kind of do both aspects there. But on the general starter option, walk people through the rod, reel, line. What would you suggest on how you get started?
So, like, if you're just a fisherman in Colorado, gets something you'd catch a lake trout on.
Okay.
Something that will handle 20-pound tests is what I'd say. 10, I know you're a 10-pound test guy. Not on carp.
I'm not. So I'm running 20-pound super line.
Okay, perfect.
Now, the only thing I want to say, just to elaborate on that, we say heavy Lakers. My first carp rod that I went right after I went with you, I got a very heavy action rod. So it was built for that, but I broke so much gear by having too much power in a rod.
So that's
I want the strength of my line, 20-pound super line type thing, or you get it on heavy mono. But you do have to have some action in your rod. Because if they really take off for a run, my line was holding, but I was breaking snaps, bending hooks. So just on the rod side, you do have to have some bend.
Or keep your drag light to accommodate.
Yeah.
So,
But
good point. But the line is the most important because you can get away with I always say an ugly stick because the average
Yep.
person is can afford that.
Yep.
So then just lay your rod on a regular stand that you would do for a V stick or
Yep.
anything you use for a trout, and open up your action or your bail.
Yep.
And then it's going to free line when they take it.
What happens if you forget to open the bail?
Well, your rod's gone.
Like,
You'll learn
in a half
that
a second.
one time.
I just have to say that really quick because, like,
One
don't make that
time.
mistake. I just want to emphasize again. I'm just going to kind of add into his stories. But, like,
I've done
when
it.
they actually get stuck and they feel
They're
it,
gone.
I mean, I bet you they're moving 8 to 10 feet a second
Oh, it's insane.
when they're hooked. So
Rod's gone.
you leave the bail closed,
It's over.
it's gone. Okay.
So make sure. And then, so if you have, you know what? Even if you don't even have a lake trout rod, not everybody's going to have that. It's the biggest rod you got. Just make sure the bail's open, heavy enough line, and then hang on. And then you can buy hair rigs.
Yep.
You can go online and learn how to tie them.
Yep.
But that's kind of a whole nother thing. So if you just want to try it, just get a hair rig that you can buy pre-tied, and it has a little stopper on that little tag in that hangs off, and you put whatever bait you want. And I would use a pop-up corn if you're starting because it's easy.
Yep.
You can get them scented. You know, pop-up corn, big carp tackles, like the only place I know to get them. Maybe online now.
A handful of places online are selling popcorn.
Okay.
Like Enterprise is probably the biggest brand out there. So Enterprise, pop-up corn. I love a flavor called Tutti Frutti, right? You can get 10 different colors, 3 sizes of all this kind of stuff.
So what, $5 for a package
That's
of
it.
them?
And the idea behind popcorn corn, just so everybody knows, it is literally a fake kernel of corn, but it floats. So on your hair rig, your weight's on bottom, your hair rig's up, and it's nice. It keeps it elevated. Not that we need it for visual, not that we need to make it easy. When it's elevated, the perfect scenario, they suck it in, and just the weight of the hook pulls it down into the mouth. If it's laid on bottom, when they spit it, the fish is elevated more, and they're able to spit it without getting stuck. So the pop-up corn adds a lift to the whole system, and it allows those fish to get stuck a little better. So your overall success rate on per take goes up with a floating piece of bait.
And then the Europeans will call that neutral buoyancy,
Okay.
where ideally the weight of the hook and the corn is 0.
Okay.
So when that fish sucks, it flies into their mouth.
Yep.
So that helps. The more farther back you can get it, that means
More
the
odds to travel.
Yeah.
Stick 'em.
So that's kind of the concept too. So, so you got a hair rig. I would go with, you can use specific leads for carp. You can buy just a lead from a bait shop.
I mean, to this day, I still make all my own leads, right? So if I want lead, but I want to have, a way to put pack bait on it or a spring system, or I want like a spider weight for saltwater where I want it sticks where it doesn't get moved in wind or anything like that, right? I start off with a cannonball, and I'm either running a straight cannonball or I'll add things to it. But you can definitely, a true carp sinker or carp weight can be $5-8 a piece.
It is.
You could, you can take it to either side.
You can.
Just know that your weight system, you have options.
So and make it fairly heavy.
Yeah.
I mean,
What's heavy?
what would you say? 2 to 4 ounces?
I always start off with 2.
Yep.
3 is good. I notice that when I go to 4, I can cast 8 miles.
Right.
With 4, when my rod's here, so I run a 7-foot medium heavy rod with like a moderate action, so I got a lot of bend, but it's still a 7-foot medium heavy. I'm running 20-pound fire line, so I'm running a super line. But when I went to 4 ounces, when the carp shakes his head, that 4 ounce of lead is flying, and I found myself pulling the hook out or breaking the hook.
Good
So
point.
if I had a lighter action rod, I could probably use 4 ounces. But for me, I land more fish on 2 to 3 ounces, just because my fish isn't throwing the weight around.
And that's
so
probably
much.
where I am too.
Yep.
2 to 3 ounces. 2 ounces to be specific is probably where. But you want it heavy enough because they need something to get hooked.
To hook. That's it. So the idea behind the weight is the weight's on bottom. When they suck it in, when they actually lift their head to go away, you have to have enough weight to penetrate their jaw.
them.
That's it. I talk to a lot of anglers that I see on shore, and I'm like, hey, man, you're so close.
Yeah,
you just need more lead.
Yep.
And like, I don't have to cast far. I'm like, it's not about casting far. The concept, I mean, it helps to cast far, but the concept is setting the hook.
That's a big
not
point
else.
most people don't get. Right.
Yep.
And then just run that leader to the hook about 8 inches is a good average. Sometimes you run it longer, sometimes you run it shorter. But that's getting into the
I'd say
nitty-gritty.
6 to 8 tends to be
6 to
the
8
perfect.
inches.
I don't get tangled on my cast, but it's far enough from my lead.
Right.
Yeah.
So do that. So buy a hair rig, 6 to 8 inches long, get you some 2 ounce weights, get 20-pound test line, And that's really all you need.
Yep.
And your pop-up corns. And then go on the internet and do some searching, and you'll start to find you can buy baits. You can buy boilies, which are basically a dough bait that's been hardened.
Okay.
So it doesn't come apart.
Yep.
And you would tie that on the back of your hair rig, and they can mouth it. It doesn't come apart.
Doesn't come off, so they can really
work
after
on
it. Yep.
I don't necessarily have great luck with boilies.
Yep.
And I think that's because they made them in Europe, and that's what they pre-bait with.
Yep.
Their fish are used to boilies. Our fish never see
They've
them.
never seen a boil. I agree. I can do boilies when I really pack them with protein.
Yes.
So I have to make my own boilies.
Yep.
So I let it to boil, but you have to make it with protein. So as they mouth it and you get little dust and particles off it, the protein, and they'll do it. But if it's not extremely cold water with high protein, I don't see the boilies doing as well.
Yep. So I think that gets somebody started.
Yeah. And that's it. And then it's hang on.
And the beepers, too. I know that there's real inexpensive ones, like $13, $14.
Say my beeper systems I'm running are $15 each, right? Because I constantly am breaking them, carrying to and from, and jumping off the boat and everything else. So I have PVC, right? Like go down to Home Depot and my rod holders are PVC. My beepers are $15, $20 each, and again I'm running a pin reel and a 7-foot rod, but fairly inexpensive for where you could be, right? You could spend $200 on a beeper pod system. All we need it for is a good system to let us know when we have a bite, keep our rods fairly organized while we're out there.
And it adds to the fun factor with the alarm going on.
I agree. When you're sitting there and you do hear that, you're like, full panic.
And everybody I take, that's the thing that they remember.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So that's good. But no, do the beeper. Just get the beaver.
Yep. It's worth it for sure. Yeah. And it's fun. So at our tournament series, there's a lot of tremendous carp anglers that fish these. There's one individual that, this guy is the champion. He's won this tournament series for 5 years in a row. And I'm not actually going to talk about him, right? He's a rock star, but he's good and he's got it dialed in. There's a couple younger anglers, right? Like high school kids that have now been fishing it for 10 years. And I watched them with the small rod, and they came to us and they're like, hey, we want to fish this tournament. They're like, we want to have a chance at winning. They're like, which category has the least entries? Okay. And it's like, hey, there's 75 anglers in walleye tonight. There's 90 in bass. There's 50 in trout. I'm like, there's 7 in carp. They were like, put us in carp. They're like, we got a chance. So, that's how they went into it. And obviously at first they're like, so they went over by the docks, and then they caught one. And they caught another. And all of a sudden they... And look, like you said, the carp angling community tends to share, right? If somebody comes to you and they're really hey, man, I want to get into it. Oh, yeah. Can you give? So anglers were starting to tell them, hey, and I watched their rigs go from they finally got the hair rig, but same thing. They're running a quarter-ounce weight. Okay. And the carp's just picking it up and dropping it. And then you watch them adapt. Now they're flat-out fish-catching machines, And cool. It's neat to watch this. But I think of all the species, right, I fish pro for walleye and all these things, I think the little things go further with carp than any other species, right? Like lake trout, there's a lot of things I can do that matter, that don't matter. But on the carp, the flavors from one to the other, it's so important. The weight from so many little things matter to a fish that really hones in what it's looking for.
Well, and too, like you talk about them being smart. So when you go, people are hiring you to catch a trophy.
Yep.
So you're going to catch them a trophy lake trout, not a lake trout.
Yeah.
And you're going to catch them a trophy pike.
Yep.
So let's say, Nate, I want you to catch me a trophy carp.
Yep.
Now I need a 25-pounder.
Yep.
Okay, so that puts a little more strain on you.
Oh, it does. It does.
And so, I agree with you.
Yeah,
and I love them on the fish.
Yeah. That's it. I love them as fish. It's crazy again. And to this day, I still have tactics for both those. You want a big fish, I'm more extreme on the structure, and I'm fishing for an area with less fish.
Right.
Just almost like the pike and the lake or something. Hey, we can go for big fish, but we're going to go to an area where there's 5 fish versus hundreds of fish, and then you see those bigger fish mixed in there. And we're fishing them at dark, we're fishing them during high noon, and they're like anything else, right? They categorize as they get older, and they have separations, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just it's a wild fish. Now, before we run out of time, I want you to tell me about one fish. Right? Of every carp you've ever caught, is there one significant one? Walk me through your favorite carp.
Do you mean my favorite catch, kind of?
Yeah, your favorite catch.
Well, it wasn't actually mine, but it was. Okay. So me and RJ were fishing one day, And so I threw his rod out for him because we just were baiting.
Yeah.
And he's over on my pods. So I get his rod out. And it's under the tree on this lake that I've told you about that's hard to fish.
Yep.
So he's over there where I threw his lines out, and I'm over where mine are. And the beeper goes off. And we're doing a tournament that's, I can't remember, it's the Big Four, the Carp Angler Group, CAG. They do this online tournament where you send your picture in, okay? And it's the whole month of May. And it's state by state, blah, blah, blah. So we're on that tournament. So on the rods that I threw out, RJ catches a 29-pounder. So I didn't catch it, but I go up, we weigh it, we picture it, right? It's a good fish.
It's a big fish.
And I'm going, well, I casted the rod out. Does it count? And obviously we didn't.
Yeah.
But that fish was very memorable.
Yep.
And then I'm going to throw another one in there. A good friend of ours, the guy who we ran you down on the road, Vinny. I took him to the same pond.
Which is great because he's not like the open-minded as much as like a carp. He was worse than me at the beginning. He's like, are you kidding me?
And so I had him meet me there after the gym one morning. And we go down there, and I'm not lying. The very first cast, I threw a little chunk of a Slim Jim onto a hair rig. I'm not lying. The water, as soon as it hit the water, I set it up in the pod, and it zinged off. Handed it to Vince, 33 pounds.
Now, I want to say one thing here real quick. Everybody I talked to is like, that's a 30-pound carp. A true 30 is so big.
They're massive.
The average carp that everybody calls a 20-pounder is a 14, 15, you know what I mean, which is a 30-something inch fish. It's huge. But in class, it's almost like any fish, right? I just probably think it's probably abused more in the carp world. But, like, when you talk about a true 30-pounder, they are gigantic
Massive.
Fish. Yeah.
Well, it was
their mouth openings like this on a 30-pounder.
Oh,
I mean,
stupid.
It's crazy. Crazy.
So so those are the two.
33.
Yeah.
Now, in Colorado, we're super fortunate. So we don't have a lot of carp, right? So when you talk other places in the country, if not Europe, I mean, you got leatherbacks and you got buffaloes and all this kind of stuff. In Colorado, we pretty much have grass carp and commons for the most part. Now, the grass carp, totally different deal. We're not fishing the same. We're fishing common carp when we're talking about most of these stories. But we have a freakish amount of mirror carp in our state.
Yes.
And it's so funny because I'll talk to anglers and I'm like, man, it's a big mirror. And they're like, what? And so we get a common carp with a genetic deficiency. So, like, their scales are weird. So, like, sometimes they'll have, like, no scales on one side, but one oddball. And so it's a weird thing, but we get tons of them.
Me too.
And it is, like, so cool. So the main fishery I fish is Chatfield right here, and just in Denver. And I mean, it's loaded up with them. I would say that almost 100% of my trips, you get one. Right? Yeah. Some days you get 5, 10 of them, but I would say almost every trip you get one. And I mean, you talk about like a trophy. And I remember the first one I caught, probably my most memorable carp, because I'm like, dude, this thing's weird. I don't know what I got. And you're like, oh, it's a mirror. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's diseased. Like, there is something wrong with this thing, And it was like, now I look at them and I'm like, dude, what a trophy, And it's so neat because they are truly unique.
They're
unique.
They're all different.
There's not a mirror carp in the world. Like, we classify them as a mirror, almost like a species, but there's not a single one that would ever be the same.
Never.
They're so random, and it's so cool to see that.
Well, you remember we did a TV show with Chad?
Oh, yeah.
And he caught his first mirror.
That's it.
He was all excited.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
No, it's cool. We've got news and TV shows and all kinds of stuff.
That
Just
was fun.
Trying to highlight the species.
That was fun.
I tell you, Bobby, I appreciate it. We could tell story after story for an hour about carp fishing. But I think moral of the story, right? When it comes to the hate crimes on fish, pick a different battle. I encourage everybody. You don't have to go do it, but I would say don't turn up your nose on the category of them, because I promise you the average common carp, or the carp in general, is smarter than you're probably giving them credit for. They pull harder than most.
Yep.
They're all over the water column in some predatory aspects of their daily feeding. And I'll tell you what, they truly are a magnificent species that I think everybody should appreciate or at least take open-minded to. come on a guide trip one time and then tell me you don't like them.
There you go. That's
right?
the best way to do
That's
it.
probably the best way to do it because once you do it, you're
Yep.
going to love it. So, again, real quick, last thing, I want everybody to walk you through what you do for a living because obviously you heard the background, how we met, but on top of that, you are a full-time taxidermist. You own Replicas Inc.
Yes.
You do birds. So, I mean, you do everything. Walk us through your day-to-day.
All right. Specialize in fish and birds.
Yep.
And super specialize in turkeys. So
The best turkeys ever.
kind
by far.
of a little spin off of where we are at Carp, but yeah. So that's what I do. So don't call me to mount an elk.
Don't mount an elk. We're calling for fish and birds. So awesome, guys. Again, I am your host, Nate Zelensky. We had Robert Schmac in studio, a.k.a. Bobby. This is the Source Podcast brought to you by Jiffy Ice Drills. Huge thanks to Jiffy for all they do in bringing us to this podcast. And as always, stay tuned for the next episode.